Welcome in, everybody, to the Week 3 NFL Breakdown Show. Happy to be here. Glad that we've got a little more data than the first couple weeks for NFL. Really like this, spot of the year going forward, as we can kind of, project on the trends and, maybe go against some things that have happened as well in the first couple weeks. Before we get into the slate, again, going to go game by game, position by position. Thinking back to the college show, going to go position by position, talk some top plays there, and then go through the top stacks as well. A little of this kind of interchangeable between positions, as of course with quarterback we're talking stacking, so we may talk a little bit of wide receiver, tight ends, and things, but the format, I think, has been good so far. If you've not joined us, be sure to do so. We've got a link in the description of the video that will give you the landing page for all of our packages. You've got monthly, weekly, yearly package options for, college football, NFL, any sport that we cover, MLB, golf when it's back, NASCAR, all three series, NHL, NBA will be back soon, EPL, Youth Champions League, UFC, tennis, college basketball will be back soon. So all of that, I would recommend the all sports package. I think, it's huge bang for your buck. So be sure to check us out there, get in the Discord. Lots of good things going on there. We also have a partnership with Ship It Nation. This is new for this year. They've gave us a code with 15% off of their packages. You can do the monthly with either with the Opto or without their optimizer. So be sure to check them out. They've got a lot of good content. They have a YouTube channel as well with free shows. So be sure to check out Tambo Hoop and the team there. In the description of the video down at the bottom, I've got the links that will take you directly to check out. Included in that 15% off for them, they've also gave us a free full week trial. So be sure to check that out. Be able to use it for week 3 and pretty much for week 4 as well, if you wanted to just try them out. So check that out in the description. Welcome in, Brian. Welcome in, Casey. Glad to see you guys in here. Any questions that anybody has, feel free to drop them in the chat, and I'll get to them as we go through here. And without further ado, let's get into the game. So, just kind of looking overview of the slate. You got a few totals that stick out to me. You've got Houston, Minnesota. I think that's going to be a good game, kind of a second tier. In terms of ownership and things. In most cases, there are a couple chalky spots in that game. But then you've got Philly and New Orleans at a 49.5 total. That's the second highest on the slate. The highest total on the slate's Detroit, Arizona, 51.5. Detroit's favored by 3. Then you got Baltimore, Dallas in the afternoon as well, 47.5. Those are in terms of totals in the game. Those are kind of the highest ones. So let's get into quarterback. So Brian mentions thoughts on Murray and Jennings, for Arizona here. So we'll definitely get into that as we talk quarterback. So starting at the top of pricing, you got Lamar Jackson down to then you got Hurts, Stroud, Murray. The way that I'm looking at this is, last year I feel like quarterback was much higher priced than they are right now. 7,500 being the highest. I know these guys got into the 8s last year. So you could look at that a couple ways. I think the thing I would want to do for me is buy in on some of these lower price tags. It just bunches things together quite a bit at the quarterback position. Hurts is in one of those games we just mentioned against New Orleans. I think that's a good back and forth matchup. Philly's D has been nothing that I've been scared of, so I think New Orleans will continue to score and put up some points here this week. We'll get to Derek Carr here in a bit, but Hurts without A.J. Brown, I think he will run quite a bit here. So really like Hurts. You can pair him up with Devontae, Goddard, whoever you want to there. Stroud, it would be a secondary option in this top range, but I think he's a pretty good tournament play. So with Stroud, you've got Tank Dell, Nico Collins. I think both of those are really good options to go with him. Like this passing game, there's a chalky no Joe Mixon this week, so you've got Cam Akers, who knows if they fully trust him. I think is something you could project. I mean, he's going to be popular. When we get to the running back position, we'll talk about him a little bit more. But you could definitely, flip the script for Houston and go to the more secure option in the passing game with Stroud, and get away a little bit from, maybe a Cam Akers if you wanted to fade some ownership. Kyler Murray, as of right now, Kyler is number one for me on the list of quarterbacks in that Arizona-Detroit game. Really like the way he started the year. Giving you that rushing floor as well that we're used to from Kyler. Love his weapons right now. You've got Marvin Harrison. And then at tight end, of course, you got Trey McBride. You could even play like a Greg Dortch as long as he's in. He popped up late on the injury report. So you need to watch that. But Kyler, pairing him with one of those two that I mentioned first is probably the way that I'm leaning. Luckily ended up with another ticket this week to the 44-44. Got it through baseball midweek, so excited for that. Maybe hopefully that ends up better than week one, where I didn't cash that one. So hopefully we can cash in. But as of right now, he's he's in my holder right now for that team. Kyler, and pairing him with one of those two guys and then run it back. And we'll get to some run backs when we get to wide receiver / tight end for Detroit. Looking at the bottom part of quarterback as we get down to 6K and below, Brock Purdy is popping quite a bit in numbers that I see, even though he will not have George Kittle, or Deebo Samuel or Christian McCaffrey. So that's interesting. Maybe they're, thinking, I think they ride Mason quite a bit, but, you could have some definite pass against a Rams defense who looks kind of lost. You could have some pass where Purdy hooks up with Ayuk, maybe Saubert at tight end, and you can get there that way. Derek Carr, New Orleans has looked amazing so far this year. Philly, I mentioned it earlier, Philly D's nothing that I'm scared of. I think Chris Olave can have a big breakout game here. I'm hoping that he stays a little bit lower owned, because I do like Olave quite a bit. Shaheed is fine as well if you want to go there. But Carr, I think, is a very solid option if you want to go cheaper at quarterback. Need to watch the news on Herbert. Not that, I'm going to be playing him, but, just for some, maybe his receivers or, I probably wouldn't play him if it's not Herbert. And maybe even, the defensive options if, Herbert does end up not playing, but everything seems to be trending that he is. Geno Smith in Seattle up against Miami here. I think Geno's definitely in play. He's looked pretty good through a couple games. You can pair him up with a JSN who's looked great to start the year. DK Metcalf has looked solid as well. Justin Fields, 5,400 cheap. We know the rushing upside is there. He's ran it a bunch. He just hasn't really broke off of big runs. I think that could be there. You got the Charger D, you know, should be better this year. I mean, they have been so far, but they really haven't played anybody. So maybe, Fields can get there for super cheap here. Probably not looking to pair him with anybody, just play him naked, even in tournaments. Minshew's the last guy that I'll mention that I have some interest in at quarterback. Going up against Carolina, may have interest in everybody who does that this year. But you can definitely look at some options. And I'm going to pull this out. I think I do this on the college show. I go game by game. I think I'm going to switch it up a little bit and do that here. I just think the flow is a little bit better. And sorry to change course kind of mid-show, but I really like our team matchups tab and, what we can look at game by game here and talk through each team. But as we talk about Minshew there, you can pair him up with Devontae Adams. Brock Bowers has looked amazing so far this year. Big target share for a tight end. They worked to get him involved really early. So definite interest there. Again, I'm going to switch back and go. I'm just going to run game by game, and I'll keep it short on some of the games that I don't have a ton of interest in, and we'll go from there. So Brian says, do you think Miami defense struggles? And is that why I'm using Geno, I'm assuming? I just think Geno's look solid. I think, Miami a lot of times can get into shootouts. I don't think they can do really that with Skylar Thompson, but we'll see. I just think he's kind of a secondary look. If you were playing 20 teams or so, he's not even on my short list for like the 44 lineup or single entry stuff. So Giants, Browns, pretty low total. Browns are favored here. Really, the only thing that I'll even mention is Malik Neighbors has been very solid. Big target share for the Giants. I think you can play him at 64. And then on the other side, you could go to maybe an Amari Cooper. Deshaun Watson is popping a little bit. There's just no way I'm getting there. I think there's plenty of other quarterback options that we can play. Maybe an Elijah Moore, if you fall in that range at 36 in multiple lineups, because probably the only guy super cheap at receiver that I'm going to will probably be Juwan Jennings at 41. But if you needed something extra 500, maybe you could play Elijah Moore. Not a ton of interest for me in this game overall. Chicago and Indy, I'm pretty much out on this one. I don't see a whole lot on either side. I talked a little bit last week that really you could maybe play Richardson in any matchup and just hope it's the one that he runs some touchdowns in, hits a couple big plays in the pass game. And then same thing would apply to A.D. Mitchell at 4K, still same price. So maybe you could go there, but I am out on this game. Jonathan Taylor's been a workhorse guy, but I just don't think I don't like this game overall. Houston, Minnesota. We've talked a little bit about Stroud, Nico, Tank Dell. Schultz is even okay at tight end at 43. Diggs is all right. I prefer the other two, especially that Tank Dell price at 4,200. I think that's, or 5,200. I think that's really cheap. The big news here in this one is no Joe Mixon, which means Cam Akers is really the main, almost every down back. If you look at their offense, you got Dari at 4,500, who's really only a pass catching guy. So I don't expect him to come in and just start getting handoffs, which means Cam Akers is going to be getting most all that work. 4,700. Again, the only concern that I would have is that, he's never been a real a guy that you can just lean on for huge workload. He's got a little bit of fumbling issues. So do the Texans just kind of put it in Stroud's hands and let him work with Nico and Tank Dell? I think I'm kind of liking that, but overall, 4,700 for the number one running back with all the workload is a cash lock and very interesting way to go in tournaments too. I mean, I don't have a problem with that at all. On the other side, Justin Jefferson looks like he's going to play, so 8,600, good run back, but also a good standalone play. I think you can definitely get there to Jefferson this week. Philly and New Orleans, really like this game to have some points. I mean, the total does as well. But Hurts, already talked about him. I think, more of with no A.J. Brown, just more of the overall offensive workload goes on to him. You can pair him with Devontae, who's going to be a pretty popular receiving option. You can play Devontae by himself as well. Goddard, 4,600, I think he's definitely in play. Liked him quite a bit last week. Now nobody's playing him. I think he could be a guy that gets a couple touchdowns tomorrow. Saquon, 7,700. I think he's a solid tournament play. I think he's pretty much the main guy here. And, if the touchdown variance goes his way, I think you could definitely get there in tournaments with Saquon. With Derek Carr and New Orleans, you got Olave and Shaheed, who we've already talked about. But you can also put him with an Alvin Kamara. I mean, Kamara, 4 targets per game, scored a touchdown through the air. So he has just been smashing, and I think that will continue. I think he's solidified himself even more so this year as the main guy as they kind of go away from Jamal Williams a little bit. So like the matchup, we saw Bijan have a solid one last week against them on Monday. And, I think Kamara has a very solid game. And Carr, it's one of those situations where you could pair Carr with Kamara and even do a 3-person stack with Carr, Kamara, Olave. I mentioned Olave. I think he has a really good breakout spot here in this one. So 6,300, I think, is just too cheap for him and what the role ultimately will be for him. It's just kind of been one of those situations so far this year. As you look at New Orleans, they've ran it 65% of the time. And a lot of that's been the game script, the game flow. Expect that, could change a little bit in a neutral situation here against Philly. Chargers, Steelers, already talked about Fields, and you can definitely play him by himself. Hope that the rushing upside gets there. J.K. Dobbins has looked really good. I struggle a little bit getting to him at 6,400. McConkey, he could be in play, or Quentin Johnston if Palmer ends up being out. Just something we need to watch. But I hate this game overall. Pittsburgh games this year have been brutal. I just don't think you can get there in any volume. It's probably going to be either Fields or pass for me in this one. Denver, Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay has looked pretty good so far to start the year, 2-0. The offense has kind of been humming a little bit. Baker's look solid. I'm not scared of the Denver D, but you could play Baker, but I think there's a lot of other better quarterback plays. But Chris Godwin, 6,500 for a 33% target share, a couple touchdowns already this year. I think he is a really good option here at 65. Mike Evans has been getting, 25% of the targets, but he's getting the guy in the red zone that they're looking to. A couple touchdowns for him on the year. So I think you could play either one of those guys. Kind of as always, it's kind of an every week thing with them that you could play them there. The rest of this game, maybe the Tampa D going up against Bo Nix, who just looks kind of lost so far to start his career. Implied for 17 is Denver. I'm not getting anybody on that offense. Mike says, "Let's go Bucks." I mean, I definitely see them winning here. I mean, they are favored by 6, but wouldn't even hate the bet to cover that for sure. Green Bay and Tennessee still looks like Love is not going to play, but we'll see. So if he does not play, I'm out on this team except maybe Josh Jacobs, and that's a larger field play probably for me against Tennessee, who's been pretty solid defensively. At least week 1 they were. The rest of Tennessee, Pollard 6K, maybe you go there. I mean, Saquon ate this team up in week 1, but that's Saquon Barkley, not Tony Pollard, would be the argument. So I could see getting to him. The rest of this team, though, I don't really want to touch. If and I could be late on news. There's a lot going on with all the college football stuff today, but if Love is in, I could see getting to Reed, who had a big week 1 with him in. Maybe you play Musgrave for cheap. But really, again, just don't love this game overall. Miami, Seattle, no Tua, of course. You got A-Chain at 7K. I think he's a really strong option with the volume that he should get. Maybe even gets more checkdowns with Skylar Thompson. And 7K is solid for the role. I mean, there's no Raheem Mostert this week. So definitely like A-Chain. The rest of this offense, I think, takes a big hit with no Tua. So we'll see, kind of what that entails. But A-Chain would be my favorite of the bunch. For Seattle, we already talked about Geno. JSN's only 5,400. I think that's definitely a nice play. DK for tournaments. Charbonnet at 6K is going to get most all the work again with no Kenny Walker. I think he's a very strong running back option. So both running backs are really strong here in this one. All right. Carolina and the Raiders. Really just kind of tournament looks here outside of Brock Bowers, who looks like going to be one of the top tight ends in the league, I think, this year in terms of fantasy. 24% target share, 8.5 targets per game so far through the first couple. I think he's a really strong look. You could play Minshew with him. Wouldn't hate that going up against Carolina. Devontae Adams is an okay look at 76. Zamir White also makes some sense in tournaments at 5,500. Maybe they get him going a little bit this week. On the other side, Chuba Hubbard would be the only guy for me. Andy Dalton, of course, steps in for Bryce Young. Does that get some of these other options going a little bit? Maybe you see Deontay Johnson at 49. I'm going to take a wait and see, I think, approach on this one. And that's where I'm at here. That's all I've got in this one. Probably, again, my favorite game of the slate. You got Detroit and Arizona. We'll start with Arizona. We've already talked about them a little bit. But Kyler's my top quarterback so far right now. Marvin Harrison, Trey McBride, James Conner is even in a good spot if you don't want to go to the passing game. And then running back on the other side with a tournament look of Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jamison Williams, 5,800. I think he is in a smash spot here. And you could play either one of the running backs. It's just about where do the touchdowns go. And even, Laporta, maybe they get him going this week. I think he's in play as well. Not sure why I didn't have those two highlighted on that sheet. So going to go ahead and get that taken care of while I'm thinking about it. But Jameson is, I think he is a very, very good option. When you look at his targets through the first couple weeks, I think it was 9 and 11. I think he just could go off here and a very nice run back on the other side for the other side. Baltimore and Dallas, not a ton that I like here. I think Jake Ferguson, looks to be back. I think he's in play at 4,500. CD Lamb is in play for tournaments pretty much every week anyway, but 8,800, I think you can go there. Can you play Dak? I guess, you could do it, but I don't, have a ton of confidence in that. And we'll kind of see how it pans out, but I don't think I'm going to get to Dak this week against Baltimore. On the other side, I think this is a nice spot for Henry. Could you play Lamar? Sure. You're going to need that rushing upside. Henry's 6,500. I think you could look to him for sure there at 65. Maybe he gets it going. They pound him on the ground this week. The rest of the team, I think, it's hard to peg what's going on in the tight end room. Zay Flowers is okay. Bateman, no. But probably Henry or pass for me, and probably Ferguson, CD or pass for Dallas. Even though this is a pretty solid total game. LA and San Francisco, I think, spot we're definitely going to have interest in San Francisco. Got Brock Purdy, 6K. Loses a bunch of his weapons, but price-wise pairs well with some of these other options. You got Jordan Mason, who's probably one of the top couple running back options on the slate, going up in a really good matchup, big volume spot again. Ayuk, 6,200, too cheap for the spot here. Maybe he's a little bit, more healthy as the season progresses here. And, I think he's going to be one of the more popular receiving options. And then Juwan Jennings, 4,100, again, just too cheap for the volume that he should step into here. Saubert would be a punt tight end. Don't hate it for sure, but also don't love it either. It's just one of those, punt and take the extra salary to somewhere else. On the other side, could you run it back with Colby Parkinson, maybe a Tyler Johnson, Jordan Whittington, Kyron Williams, maybe. I just don't have a ton of confidence in anything that this offense is going to do. I'm pretty much going to stick with the San Fran side here and not even try to get to any run backs. So that'll be it for the slate. FanDuel does include the Atlanta-Kansas City game. So, if you're playing over on FanDuel, Rashee Rice is a very solid option. At receiver, you can get to Bijan at running back on the other side. That's probably it for me. Rashee, Bijan, or pass on the late game over on FanDuel. Well, let's take a look at the stack tool. Something that we've been doing every week. We just added this to the sheet here this year. We've had it for college football, so really excited that we were able to bring it over. You got Brian says, is it viable to have A-Chain and Charbonnet in the same lineup? I think it is for sure. Wouldn't stay away from that at all. DOB says Marv, of course, his Ohio State guy. But yeah, I really like Marv this week. Really like that game overall. Even though it's probably going to be the most popular, I think you can get your lineup different somewhere else. And, it's one of those spots that I don't want to get too cute. I'm probably going to, stack that thing up and even run it back on the other side and then get different somewhere else. So on our stack tool, currently we've got San Francisco actually rates out the best in terms of a double stack. Ayuk and Juwan Jennings would be that combo with Purdy. Cleveland is second with Elijah Moore and Akins. This is point per dollar with Deshaun Watson. You got Philly, Tampa Bay, Seattle is the order there. So Devontae and Goddard with Jalen Hurts. Don't hate that at all. If you want to kind of get little, and these opponents are wrong. I've got to fix them, but the teams in general are correct. So let's see here. We've got actually Pittsburgh is popping a little bit in the top. Tampa Bay, Godwin and Otten, Seattle, JSN and Fant is the double stack combo. Tank Dell and Nico, really like that. As if you want to pivot off of the run game there, who's going to be pretty popular with Cam Akers. That is all I've got. I'm going to check and see real quick if there's any more questions. What's the workload you expect from James Conner? Yeah, I mean, he's had a solid workload through the first couple. I think he's a strong option. I prefer the passing game a little bit more. But, I mean, I think he's definitely in a good spot in the highest total and going to get most of the work here. 20 and a half touches through the first couple games each. So, yeah, I think you can definitely play James Conner. But, again, I kind of like the Murray plus Marvin or McBride a little more than the running game. Yeah, you could play him with Kyler in large field stuff, but, I don't think he's going to him enough so far in terms of target numbers this year for it to really be something that I'm going out of my way to stack Kyler plus Conner. It's not like a Kamara and Carr thing for me. Top 3 receivers. Yeah, since I kind of switched out and went game by game, let me switch over and I will switch over to the wide receiver tab. So my top 3 receivers for tomorrow would be, let's see here. I think Ayuk is a really, really good option. If I'm going to the top of pricing, I kind of like in that game Amon-Ra and Nico Collins. Let's see. Top 3, and I'll do point per dollar. I'm going to say Ayuk 1 just because of the role. I don't think it would be all the way at the top in terms of point per dollar ranking for me. I'm going to say Chris Olave 2, Tank Dell 3, Jameson Williams, I'll give you a 4th. Jameson Williams 4 point per dollar. I'm going to have all of my rankings up on the sheet. If you all are in the chat and have a copy of the sheet, I will have all those rankings up, point per dollar. Yeah, there's a lot of good receiver plays, in my opinion. But I'll have all those ranked fully out probably before I go to bed tonight. All right. Good luck to everybody this week. Hopefully, selfishly, I can cash in on the 44-44 ticket and turn that into something. We'll see. But, we'll hope to see everybody back next week. We're trying to plan to have Chris join me. We've been wanting to do, a show or two together for a while again. Maybe it's a NASCAR show. Maybe it's this one. We'll see. DOB and I will be back probably Friday night for college football next week. So be sure to check us out for that. We've got 3 shows really that are consistent each and every week right now. Free shows on the channel. So be sure to give us a like and a subscribe so you know when we do go live. But it's the NASCAR show, which I did earlier today. Looks like our top-ranked guy won here with Larson. Not sure how I snapped out in the not sure how I ended up DFS-wise there, but I don't think it could have been too bad. Yeah, very solid cash in NASCAR tonight. So happy with that one. But yeah, so we're going to have that. The college football and the NFL show are the consistent ones each and every week. So be sure to check those out. Good luck to everybody on Sunday, and we will see you next week.